Thank you for joining today's desktop workshop on the FY26 Leased Vehicle Request and Approval Process. Today's topics include FY26 Acquisition Cycle Expectations, FY26 Key Dates, Process Overview and Demo, Replacement Vehicle Selection and Approval Process, Additional Vehicle Request and Approval Process, Tips for a Successful Acquisition Cycle, and Q&A. FY26 Expectations and Key Dates. FY26 Expectations and Planning Slide 1. Rollover from FY25 to FY26. Replacement vehicle selections made in FY25 rolled over to FY26 at the same review level they were previously at. Reviewers should either forward the selection to the next level or return it to the local level for changes. Vehicles marked as Do Not Replace in FY25 were returned to the local level for FY26. Local customers should change the vehicle selection from Do Not Replace to a new replacement vehicle selection and forward it to the next review level. Vehicles marked as Turn In FY25 rolled over to FY26 as Turn In. Customers should coordinate with their FSR to turn in the vehicle or request that their FSR return the request in order to make a replacement vehicle selection. FY26 Expectations and Planning Slide 2. Acquisition Questionnaire, AFV surcharges, and approver updates were distributed to headquarter fleet managers in September. Responses should be sent to gsafleet.acquisition@gsa.gov as soon as possible. Questionnaire responses and agency guidance will be uploaded to gsafleet.gov and will be accessible by customers and FSRs. FY26 Expectations and Planning Slide 3. Revised FY26 Leasing Acquisition Cycle Key Dates. Replacement eligible vehicles were referred to local customers in gsafleet.gov on October 20th. Key dates were revised following the conclusion of the government shutdown. We have allotted 3 weeks for each review level. Agencies and bureaus are encouraged to utilize alternate approvers to minimize delays. Keep things moving. No need to wait for established deadlines. Please complete the reviews at each level as soon as possible. FY26 Key Dates. The leased vehicle replacement cycle began on November 17th. Vehicle selections are due to the bureau level by December 5th. Bureau-level approved selections are due to headquarters by December 26th. Headquarter-level approvals are due by January 16th, and the selections are sent to the FSR. The leased vehicle replacement cycle ends on January 16th. Please note that these dates are tentative and that this timeline is strictly for replacement vehicle selections. Additional vehicle requests can be created and approved at any time throughout the acquisition cycle. Deadline adherence. Adhering to selection and approval deadlines is critical to a successful acquisition cycle for everyone. It reduces costs to the government that can result from price increases. It enables replacement vehicles to be ordered as soon as possible. It minimizes the impacts of manufacturer model closeouts, which may require changes to the type of vehicle selected, revisions to options or colors due to shifting availability, and increased costs. Communication is key. Maintain frequent communication at all approval levels and with the GSA Fleet Service representative. Be prepared to provide an alternate selection if the preferred SIN or model becomes unavailable. We ask that you be proactive and stay flexible. Replacement Request and Approval Process. FY26 Vehicle Request and Approval Process, Slide 1. Highlights. There are multiple approval levels. Some are optional, so your agency can use what you need. You can have alternate approvers at each level, up to 2 at each level. You are able to see all requests scoped to your role on screen, regardless of their status. There are increased filtering capabilities. There is also additional information on the vehicles eligible for replacement. There are enhanced vehicle and option selection functionality, along with the ability to add option comments. FY26 Vehicle Request and Approval Process, Slide 2. Continuing with the highlights, users will have the ability to view agency guidance, select vehicle type and SIN, request options, colors, and specific fuel types, add comments and upload documentation, and return for changes or send forward to next level. Requests returned and edited by the local customer will go back through the FSR for review prior to moving on to the bureau or agency level. There is also the ability to track replacement requests through the acquisition cycle using a reporting feature. The
Leased
process
vehicle
began
approval
with
hierarchy.
the FSRs
Slide
reviewing
1.
and finalizing their eligible vehicle listings via spreadsheets, and the finalized replacement vehicle list will be uploaded into gsafleet.gov. The FSR work was done ahead of time, and no action will be required on their part once the process begins. The Customer Fleet Manager, known as the local customer in CAM, will review the eligible vehicle request and select the replacement vehicle type, SIN, and options to meet their mission. They should closely review their agency guidance to make sure that their selection adheres to the policies outlined by their headquarters. The FSR will review the request to ensure it meets agency guidance and either approve and send forward to the next level or return to the prior level for changes. If established, the request will move to the bureau-level approver. They have the ability to view the request and either send forward to the next level or return to the prior level for changes.
On the next slide, once the request is forwarded on from the bureau level, if a agency level approver is established, the request will move on to their level for review and approval. They will review the request, compare it to agency guidance, and make sure everything looks good. And then they can either add a comment and return it back for changes if needed, or they can approve it, and it will move on to approved at FSR status. And then the FSR can do another review and then create a vehicle requisition that will then go through additional GSA levels of review prior to being placed with the vehicle supplier. And customers will be able to view their replacement vehicle from the time of request through the delivery of the vehicle within gsafleet.gov. So this slide touches on the ability that I mentioned to add up to 2 alternate approvers at each approval level. This is entirely optional, and the agency headquarters fleet manager can determine how they'd like to set up their hierarchy. But if they do select alternate approvers, any of the 3 approvers can review vehicle requests, and they can either return them for changes or forward on to the next level. And we saw last year, we believe that this ability to do this is helpful, and it can really help with keeping requests moving, especially if the primary approver is unavailable for any reason. Okay. So for creating and editing vehicle request, customers with the following roles assigned in gsafleet.gov have the ability to create and edit vehicle replacement request when they are in referred or returned status. And that would be the customer administrator role as well as the customer fleet manager role, which is the local level. On the next slide, we touch on the bureau and agency approval hierarchies. So this is just another push for the agency headquarter fleet managers. If you have not sent us any updates to your approval hierarchy, we ask that you do so as soon as possible so that we can ensure that these vehicle requests are routed through the appropriate approvers. In future versions of gsafleet.gov, agency customer administrators will be able to go into gsafleet.gov and they can modify their approval hierarchy themselves. And that can make it a lot easier instead of having to reach out to our team. But in addition, we do ask you to pay close attention throughout the approval process. And if you have any changes to your personnel that may require an update to an approver, you can email us at gsa.fleet.acquisition@gsa.gov, and we can make sure that those updates are made so that the right people are looking at the request. The next slide touches on automated notifications. So those of you that were familiar with the customer acquisition module CAM, remember that there were daily email notifications when a user had a vehicle request to take action on. In gsafleet.gov, customers will not receive the daily automated email notifications each time a replacement vehicle request is forwarded to their level. So we do recommend that users log into gsafleet.gov on a daily basis and look to see if anything is at their particular level awaiting their action. We will be sending email reminders to bureau and agency level approvers from our acquisition mailbox at 1 week and 1 day prior to the established deadlines. So although users will not receive daily automated email notifications when a replacement vehicle request is at their level, the system will, I think we, hold on. So I think we kind of duplicated our slide here, didn't we?
Yeah, Amber, I think we had a slight error, so I just moved on to the next one here.
Okay, thank you. I was getting confused for a second. I was like, didn't I just say that? So although the system, there won't be a daily auto-generated email when there are selections at a particular level. There will be email notifications to the primary or to the local customer when a selection has been returned for their review. So this is an example here on screen of what that would look like. So the local customer should pay particular attention to those notifications because that requires some type of recommended change to their vehicle request. So next, I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who's going to talk a little bit more through each of the different roles.
All right, thank you, Amber. Got the mic on, got the video on here. Okay, so continuing on the presentation, we're going to talk here about the Fleet Service Representative role, or the GSA FSR. This role is a very important role, and the FSR will have the initial responsibility of selecting, reviewing the vehicles and assisting the selections that the customer has made. They finalize the list of eligible vehicles that are placed into gsafleet.gov. They become familiar with the agency guidance that your agencies provide us that help them determine whether or not the selections fall in line with that guidance. And they discuss projected replacements and mission requirements with the local customer. And they assist local customers with replacement selections for their vehicles. The FSR is your primary point of contact as a local customer. If you have any questions regarding GSA Fleet, regarding replacement vehicles, regarding the acquisition process, anything GSA related, they are your first and best point of contact. They are very knowledgeable and very skilled. Next, we'll talk about the customer fleet manager role. Customer fleet manager, that is the local customers who usually are closest to the vehicle or the end user out in the field. They review the eligible replacement vehicles. They determine how to proceed, whether to select a replacement vehicle type. If that vehicle no longer has a use, there's no longer a mission for it, maybe your office is downsizing or using consolidating vehicles to smaller number and getting more utilization out of your vehicles. And you just want to turn that vehicle in without ordering a replacement for it, you would select turn in without replacement. Or you can select do not replace this year. If you select do not replace, that basically means there's some type of mission requirement or something special about that vehicle where it would be in the best interest of the government, to the taxpayers, and the local office to not replace that vehicle. Maybe it has a special upfit on it that you're concerned about getting a replacement for that this year, or getting it special equipment on it that you would have to be transferred over, or maybe some other reason why you don't want to replace that vehicle this year. When you do select that, that will be heavily scrutinized by the FSR. We do select these vehicles for replacement each year based on a number of factors and based on maintenance costs, mileage, age, and resale value of those vehicles. So we've kind of optimized the time when we want to replace these vehicles. So if you're selecting do not replace, FSRs are probably going to have a conversation with you to make sure that's truly what we want to do with that vehicle. Input all required information on the replacement vehicle selection screen. So you'll select the SIN the options, the colors, and any special instructions for that vehicle. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we go through the demo. And you'll send the vehicle selections onto the next level by the established deadline. Fleet service representative role. Once the local customer makes their selection, it will then go to the FSR for their review. Again, they're going to review based on the agency guidance that your agencies have provided, such as saying only this size of vehicle is allowed, these color of vehicles, only these options, or these options or colors are not allowed, or this type of size of vehicle is not allowed. That's the kind of stuff they're going to review in the agency guidance and the vehicle selection that you have made. If everything is in line with the agency guidance and everything else checks out, they'll go ahead and send that on to the next approval level that your agency has established, or if there's any changes that need to be made, they'll send those selections back to the local level for changes. If they select anything to go back to the local customer, they will enter comments indicating what kind of changes need to be made and any other information along with that. If the FSR determines that the vehicle selection is good, it will go on to the bureau level approver. If the agency has set up bureau level approvers, most agencies set up bureau level approvers, but some do choose to not use that level and just use the agency level. But if they are using the bureau level, it'll go on to the bureau level. Where the bureau level approver will review the vehicle selection. Again, make sure everything looks good on the selections, on the options, the colors, the type of vehicle selected. And if everything looks good, send that on to the next level for review, or send it back to the previous level of the local customer to make any changes, along with any detailed comments that they'll input on what changes need to be made. And they need to ensure that they send all selections onto the next level by the established deadline so we can keep the acquisition process flowing. The agency level approver. So agencies have established a headquarters or agency level approver to do a final review on the vehicle selections. So whether this was forwarded straight from the local customer or went through the bureau level review, it will then go on to the agency approver, who they'll then do the same type of review as the bureau level approver, check, make sure everything is in alignment with the mission, the agency goals, and agency guidance. If any changes need to be made, they'll send it back to the local customer to make any changes, or they'll go ahead and prove it on to the final FSR review by the established deadline. So the FSR then gets the selection. It's been final approved by the agency headquarters fleet manager. They're carefully reviewing it again, making sure that all the essential options, colors, and model requirements that have been indicated have been approved and selected and notated on that request. They'll view any supplementary information and documents that have been uploaded or attached to the request. Again, we'll go a little more into detail on that on the when we go do the live demo here a little later in the presentation. They'll follow up with the local customer with any information or questions they have on the vehicle request. And then once everything looks good, they'll go ahead and create the vehicle requisition. This requisition is built by the local FSR, and then goes on through multiple levels of review within GSA to make sure all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed and everything looks good. And then they'll transmit that request onto the supplier, where it becomes an order, and the vehicle supplier then schedule it for production. Please note that we do order all of our vehicles to be produced. We don't generally order them off the lot, so there is a delay or a time frame between the time that the vehicle is ordered and the vehicle is delivered. I will go over some of the request status descriptions that you'll see in gsafleet.gov. Again, you'll see some of these when we go through the demo, but the request statuses will move through these different levels, and they'll be indicated in gsafleet.gov what level they're at. Referred status is essentially where the vehicle starts out when selected as a replacement eligible vehicle. And then it's at the local customer to go ahead and make their selection of whether to replace, turn in without replacement, or to not replace it this year. The FSR, after it's referred, the local customer will send it on to the FSR review. The FSR will review it. Everything looks good. They'll send it on to the bureau review or agent's review, depending on how the hierarchy approval is set up for your agency. Bureau review, agency review, those are the statuses when the vehicle is at those different levels. Once, if a vehicle has been selected for turn in or do not replace, the final status will show as agency approved once that's approved by your agency headquarters fleet manager. And that's the final status for it. Basically, at that point, you need to coordinate with your local FSR to turn that vehicle in as soon as possible. If you selected do not replace, then and that's been final approved and that agency approved, then there's nothing more that needs to be done on that vehicle. If you did select a replacement vehicle and it's been approved by the agency, it'll go on to the it'll go on to the FSR, who then will do the final review, and status will show approved at FSR. At that point, the requisite or the request is waiting for the FSR to create the requisition. There may be some delay in that, and that they need to wait for the particular SIN or vehicle to open on contract to order, or some other things, but it usually moves pretty quickly from approved at FSR to requisition created. Once it shows requisition created, that means that requisition has been built and is in the process of being sent to the supplier to create an order. If it shows returned status, that means that vehicle has been returned back to your level 4 review, and there'll be comments indicated what changes or updates need to be made to that vehicle selection, such as changes to options, colors, or other information on it. All right, we'll now be working with Simeon here, who will help us with the live demo of gsafleet.gov and this process that we've been talking about. Let me just figure out how to stop that.
All right. Thanks, Chris. Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take a look at the creation of a request process. So to get to the replacement request functionality from the main page, you're going to scroll down to fleet offerings from the main page, and then click on lease vehicles. And when you get there, you'll see a couple of options. There is going to be one for replacement vehicles and one for additional vehicles. So you'll click on request a replacement vehicle here. And that's going to take you to the main landing page. Now, one thing to point out is that initially when you get to this page, the table where the vehicles are going to show up, it's going to be blank by default. So in order to get results into the table, you're going to have to make at least one selection in the available filters. And you'll see here that we have quite a number of filters available to make it easier for you to sort, the vehicles that you need to look at. So we have 4 sections of filters. We have a leasing organization where you have your agency, bureau, BOAC, and POC information. Then we also have a leasing account section where you have the ability to search by your FSR, the zone, the GSA FMC, and the GSA legacy customer number. Then we'll have the vehicle section where you can search for an individual vehicle using either the license plate number or the VIN of the vehicle that you're working on replacing. And you also have the ability to search by the old SIN of the vehicle that's being replaced, as well as the new SIN that you selected for your vehicles to be ordered as. And then we also have the request management section available here as well. And there are a couple of drop downs here. So the first one is the selection type. So if you click on it, you'll see that there are 3 main selection types that you can search for. So we have the replace vehicle, which is replacing an existing vehicle with a new vehicle. We also have a turn-in vehicle, and that's a type of request where you're asking to not replace a vehicle and turn it in. And then also a do not replace, where you're going to hold over a vehicle for an additional fiscal year. And then for request statuses, Chris went over those just a little bit earlier, but we have the various request statuses available. So if you wanted to look at the requests in a particular status, you have the option to do that here. So we're going to go ahead and apply one of these filters. So I'm going to select leasing agency. And I'll just point out that for me, it looks slightly different because I'm an internal user. So I have all of the agencies available, but as a user from a particular agency, you're going to have the scoping to your own agency, so you'll only have your agency available here, and then the same thing goes for the bureau as well. So for the purposes of the demo, we're going to use a fictitious agency 22, so we'll search for its vehicles here. And then we're going to go ahead and click search to pull up our results. So we have here, one vehicle that shows up. So that's the one we're going to take a look at. And as you can see here, the table, although we have one, vehicle that shows up here, we do have these column headers that we can also sort by. So we have the license plate number, BOAC, old SIN, new SIN that's available once that's selected, the odometer reading, LE designation, selection type, and request status. And as you can see here, this is the initial status of referred. That's what most of the FY26 vehicles are loaded in as. And I'll also point out while we're on this page that we do have the functionality to run a report to show you your request statuses. So as you see here, there's a export search results button. So once you apply your filters, you can actually then run the export search function. So to kind of manipulate, what you'd like to be in your report, you can use the filters above. And then when you click that, that's going to then give you a success banner at the top, and then also let you know that you're going to receive an email with your report that you requested. And another search capability we have here is this box, and this is really a free text entry search. So you can enter any text here, and then that's going to narrow down the results in the table below. So we'll go ahead and start our request process. So we'll click on the hyperlinked license plate number of this vehicle. And that's going to take us to the first page of the request details section. So as you can see here at the top, there's a blue box that's showing us the information on the vehicle. So showing the license plate number, the current status, make, model, and then the hyperlinked VIN. So you can actually click on that and access that vehicle's information in VMS. And then it's also going to show us some other information for the old vehicle, and it's also going to show us the agency and POC information here as well. So scrolling down below, this is where we'll need to take our first action. So we're going to have to select what we would like to do with this request. So we have three options. We can replace the vehicle, turn in the vehicle, or not replace it in this fiscal year. So if we were to select, either turn in vehicle or do not replace, you'll see here that when you select that, there are lists of various reasons here that you can input, and there's also a box for providing additional information for your choice. But for the purposes of the demo, we'll go ahead with the more common route of replacing a vehicle. So this is now where we'll actually get to request a new vehicle that we would like to order. So the first section is the garage address section, and some of this information may be actually pre-filled for you, depending on what information you have for your vehicle in the customer-driven data. So you can see here that we do have some information available, and the mandatory fields in this section are country, state, and zip code. So you don't have to provide the other address fields, but you do have to at least provide these particular fields. And then next, the system will ask us if we'd like to have the new vehicle be used for towing. So by default, it's set to no, but if we do need to tow something, we can click yes. And then it's going to prompt us to enter the max combined towing weight for this vehicle, and then we can input a value here, and we can also switch, from pounds to kilograms if needed. Next, the system is going to ask us if we would like to replace the vehicle with the same SIN. So if you would like to do that, all you have to do is just leave it as yes and then click next. But in case you want to switch the SIN of your vehicle, you can select no here. And then there will be a couple of ways for you to select a new SIN. So we can either enter it here on the type ahead. So we can click for example, start typing in 55. That'll bring up some choices, or we can also click on one of these tiles here. And then that's going to also show us the available vehicles here as well. So we'll go ahead, type it in here. And then click next. So you'll see here we'll be on the second request details page now. So we're still going to get this blue box with the vehicle information at the top. And then it's also going to show us the information that we put in on the first page. So it'll show us the selected SIN, the garage address, and the towing weight. And then the next section is going to be the option section, and it's going to show us the the minimum requirements, and then also the options that we would like to add. So as you can see here, these options are actually coming through from the federal standards, and just to point out, not all of the options might be available on the contract, but they're options that are usually available within that sense. So we can request certain options here, but they might not be always available on the contract itself. So just for example, we'll pick a few options here. And then one thing to point out is that there is the ability to add comments to the option. So we can click add comment here, and then that's going to prompt us to enter a comment here. So we can enter a comment specifically to that option. And then we can also edit the comment or delete it later if we want to do that. So we can just click delete here, and then the comment is gone. So once we're finished with selecting our options, we're going to scroll down to the bottom of the page and then click next. And this will take us to the third page of the request details page. So it's going to show us the information that we've already entered in earlier. And the system will also show us now the information for the options that we selected. So you can also see here that the comments for the options are also showing up here. And then the last section is going to be the supplementary information section. So this is going to ask us if we need a specific make and model. So GSA Fleet typically orders the low bid version of the vehicle for that SIN, but in cases where you do need a certain make and model for your mission, for example, maybe if you're a law enforcement customer and you require a diverse fleet of vehicles, you can enter that information here. So you will then select yes. And then there's going to be a box that lets you input the make and model for your vehicle. So we'll enter in our make and model here. And then the system will also remind you that you do need to provide a justification for requesting a specific make and model. So then you'll just scroll down to the documentation section. Then you'll see here that there's the ability to upload a file. So you'll click that. And this is where we can upload our file for the make and model justification. So we'll select the file here. And then since we're uploading a make and model justification, we do have to select the make and model justification as the category. Otherwise, the system will not allow us to proceed. And then we can also enter any additional comments here below. And then the next section is going to be the special instruction section. And this is where you can enter in any additional information that wasn't covered previously. So one of the things that we encourage our users to do here is if you do need a particular color this is a good area to enter that in. Or if you have any, special delivery preferences for, location or delivery type, you can enter that in here as well. And then at the end, you're going to also check off the ISO 141 statement. And that's going to, finish up the request creation process. And one additional thing to point out here is that you also have the ability to enter comments at this stage too. So here's the activity and comments section here. It's currently empty, but it is going to start filling out if you either post a comment or if you move the request through the workflow. So we can enter a test comment here. And then that comment is going to be visible for all the users in the system. So everyone else who's reviewing this request later is going to be able to see it as well. So we're going to go ahead and save and submit our request to the next level. So the routing of the request depends on your particular agency. So typically, for a lot of our users, it'll go from the local user to the FSR to review, and then from the FSR, it will go to the bureau reviewer and then the agency reviewer. But depending on your structure, that might differ a bit. So we click Save and Submit, and you'll see here that we get the success banner at the top showing us our license plate number. And then if we scroll down here, we'll see that this vehicle is an agency review. And because I'm logged in as an internal user, it skipped the FSR part. But typically we'll go to the FSR and then to the next level of your agency's reviewer. So as the agency reviewer, this is essentially going to be the headquarters fleet manager looking at this request. So we're going to go ahead and open it up. And as you can see here, the agency reviewer has a very similar view to what we saw on the third request details page. So we're going to have the blue box at the top with the information for the vehicle that's being replaced. And you can see here they also have the ability to see the information that was put in by the local user. So they can see the selected SIN, the garage address, and the towing weight. They also have the ability to look at the activity tracker. So this is where the comments are going to show up. So as you can see here, this is our test comment that we entered earlier. And then also the next one is the request status, where it shows us it went from the referred status to agency review status. And one other thing to quickly point out here is that we also have in the top blue area, there is a section for previously selected options. So this is going to display any options that were originally ordered that were non-standard options in the vehicle. So in our example, it's blank, but this is a important section to pay attention to make sure that you're ordering options that you'll need for the mission on your new vehicle. And then scrolling down below, the agency reviewer can also see the options that were requested, as well as the comments that were attached to that option. And then they can also see the supplementary information section. And because we did have a specific make and model that we were requesting, we can see here in documentation, we can access the make and model justification here. So once we get to all the way to the bottom, we essentially have two options. So the agency reviewer can either approve the request, which will then send it to the FSR to go ahead and create a requisition from this request, or we can return this request to the local customer. And this, if there are any changes that need to be made, that can be done here. So to return a request, you'll just click on Return to Customer button. And then there's going to be a prompt here where there's a mandatory field that you have to enter a comment providing a reason for the return. So you will need to enter something in here, and then you'll just click Return Request. and that's going to send the request back to the local user to make any changes. And one thing to point out too is that there will be a email notification sent to the local user when a request is returned. So for the purposes of the demo, we'll just go ahead and click approve. And then you'll see here that we'll get a success banner saying that our request has successfully been submitted to the next review level, which is the FSR in this case. So you'll see here our request status is now showing approved at FSR. So at this point, the request is going to be with the FSR, and then the FSR is going to work on creating the requisition from this request. So this covers our demo for the replacement request. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Amber and Chris.
Thanks. I mean, as soon as I figure out how to get my Zoom
Yeah.
to come back here.
Okay, yeah, I just stopped sharing to.
Okay. There we go. Now gonna share back presentation. All right. Can I get somebody to confirm they can see the presentation again?
Yep.
Thanks, Stacy. All right.
Okay.
So continue on. Thank you, Simeon, for that presentation. He'll be doing another presentation a little later here in the show demo. Be doing another demo on additional vehicles. But first, want to cover a few things that we saw in the replacement vehicle selection process that Simeon just demoed. The garage address will populate if that has been entered into the customer-driven data. So if that information has been inputted already into gsafleet.gov, it should fill out automatically within the replacement vehicle request process. The address fields can be edited if there's any changes or that address is no longer any good. If the vehicle requires a delivery to a different city or state other than what has been inputted based on the garage address, then you can put that information in the special instructions field, and also need to make sure you have that conversation with the FSR. You know, the FSR is reviewing a lot of information, and because it is a kind of a special free text field, we just want to make sure that we draw their attention to that when they're creating that requisition. So please touch base with your FSR if it's going to a different location or needs to go to a different location. Low GHG models will not be highlighted for FY26. This is a change, again, from previous years. Please refer to the FY26 AFV guide to identify SINs with low GHG options. The FAV guide, I believe, will not be posted on gsafleet.gov, but if you would like a copy of it once it's finalized, you can reach out to the AFV team or your local FSR, and they should be able to send that out to you. But I do believe that guide is still being finalized, so not quite available yet. FSRs will notify local customers if a low GHG model cannot be ordered for that SIN. Oh, sorry, clicked the wrong button. And then advise on how to go from there. Approvers at all levels should closely review the agency guidance. Again, agency guidance, I saw several questions in the Q&A about this. This is agency guidance that has been provided by your headquarters agency fleet manager. So this is the top person in fleet within your agency. And they are a primary point of contact for your agency. They have provided us guidance based on a questionnaire and different information that they have provided us on vehicles that they want selected for your fleet. It is posted within gsafleet.gov and also is accessible to the FSRs and local customers. Approvers need to review new replacement vehicle requests in a timely manner. Make sure that they are reviewing any supplementary information that has been attached or inputted into special instructions, or any comments, any documents that have been uploaded, or any other special instructions. They need to review the requested options, colors, and make and model requirements. Those are not guaranteed. So if you are requesting, those options, colors, or make and model, we'll do our best as long as it's in the best interest of the government and the taxpayers to get those, but they are not guaranteed. Remember, they are just requests, and it's not confirmed until the FSR actually creates the requisition and places the order with the supplier. FSR will contact local customers if there's any changes to the requests that need to be made. Now I'll be taking a look at the additional vehicle request and approval process. Again, I saw a few questions. Just want to hit on that before we get started here. Additional requests can be submitted at any time. You do not need to wait for a certain period. We encourage you to get those inputted into gsafleet.gov and up through your approval chain so that those can be funded and acquired as soon as possible during the fiscal year. Requests can be inputted at any level. It can be inputted at the local bureau or agency level, and depending on what level it's inputted in, so let's say it goes inputted at the local level, it'll then go on to the bureau review, agency review, etc. If it's inputted at the bureau, it'll just go to the agency review, and if it's inputted by the agency level, once they input it, it'll go on to GSA as fully approved. The additional vehicle requests are not guaranteed, and they are subject to your agency policy and guidance and approvals. It's also subject to GSA funding and vehicle availability. GSA does have to assign new funding to purchase new additional vehicles. We aren't able to use the resale of an old vehicle or vehicle that's being replaced, obviously, because this is an entirely new asset that's being acquired. Ensure that there are no billing delinquencies for the requested BOAC. If there are any billing delinquencies or unpaid bills associated with the BOAC that is requesting the additional vehicle, a red banner will appear at the top of the page indicating that there are outstanding bills. Vehicle requests will not be funded by GSA Business Management until billing delinquencies are resolved. And although those requests will not be funded until the delinquency is resolved, those requests can still be created and they still can move through the approval workflow, through the customer's approval workflow while that billing issue is being resolved. Determine that there is a long-term vehicle need for additional vehicles. So otherwise consider the GSA short-term rental program. Your local FSR can point you in the right direction on where to get more information on the short-term rental program. So again, additional vehicles are for long-term requests. Familiarize yourself with your agency guidance and check the vehicle available listing within the Just Browsing feature of gsafleet.gov or the vehicle available listing at the valve that's on the store offerings page. I also saw a question about getting a spreadsheet of all SINs, makes, and models that came up a couple times in the Q&A. Again, you can get that through the vehicle availability listing under the off-fleet offerings section. You'll be able to view all the SINs, makes, models, contract open and close dates, and there is an export feature where you can export that listing into a spreadsheet and view it that way. Now we're going on to another demo done by Simeon. We'll go over the additional vehicle approval process.
All right, thanks, Chris. Yeah, let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and take a look at creating an additional request and also using the additional request functionality to look at your existing request. So just like to get to the replacement request, we're going to scroll down to fleet offerings from the main page, and then we're going to click on lease vehicles. And then to get to additionals, we'll actually just click right below request an additional vehicle. So this is going to take us to the main landing page of additionals, and you'll notice it looks very similar to the replacement page. And there are also quite a few filters available here that you can use, to manage your requests and look at your current existing request. And just like for replacements, you'll see if you scroll down below to the table where the requests are populating by default. When you first get onto this page, it's going to be blank, and you'll have to apply at least one filter to get results. So, for example, if we did want to look at the existing requests for our agency, we'll go ahead and scroll down for our demo agency 22 here, and then we'll click search, and then we'll see here that we do have a couple of existing requests. And just like for the replacements, the column headers are sortable, so If you did want to sort, sort by a request ID order, you can flip that here. And then same thing for the other columns. And you'll notice here that the fields available here are BOAC, customer account number, requested SIN, request type, and request status. And then also there is the free entry search available here as well. Now looking at the filters, they are slightly different from requests for replacement. So for leasing organization, we do have the same, leasing agency and bureau available. And the agency and the bureau shown here will be the ones that are scoped to your specific account. We also have the BOAC and customer POC filters here. And for leasing account section, we have the FSR type ahead filter, which you can use to find your FSR. We also have the zone, the GSA fleet FMC, the legacy customer number, as well as the customer account number here. And for request management, we have the request status, which is going to show us the statuses for the additional requests. And it's also going to show us the request type, which is slightly different from replacement vehicle. So for additionals, the main three request types are expansion of mission, replacing agency-owned vehicle, or replacing a commercial lease. We also have the ability to search by the requested SIN for the new vehicle. And we can also look for specific additional requests here by using this additional request ID search. And then lastly, we also have the ability to search by submitter email here. And we do have a couple of this internal section here available, but that's only for GSA internal users. So now we're going to go ahead and click create a new request to take a look at the process of submitting an additional request. So the first thing that we'll need to do is select a customer account to tie with our additional request. So there are various filters available here to find the customer account that you'd like to tie your request to. So for example, we're going to just pull up all of the customer accounts for our agency here. So we'll select agency 22 and then click search. And then that's going to populate the fields below showing us the available customer account. So as you can see here, it's going to show the customer account, the account name, the BOAC, and also like something that Chris mentioned earlier, it's also going to show us the delinquent account status. And this is going to be a yes or no flag. So if your account does have any delinquent bills over 90 days, this will actually show a yes here. And that will not stop you from submitting a request. You'll still be able to move through the process, but there's going to be a red banner at the top of your request details that will be a reminder to make sure to remedy your bill situation. And typically business management will not fund any additional requests that do have delinquencies over 90 days. So it'll let the request move up to that point, but the GSA business management team will not fund them until the delinquency situation is taken care of. So if you do want to also search by different other avenues for your customer account, you could also use the BOAC, the customer POC, or even the FSR email search here. Or you can also look at the zone FMC, customer account number, and the legacy customer number. So once you do select a customer account that you'd like to use for this additional request, you can just click select here. And then that's going to kick off the creation of a request. So at the very top, there's going to be a blue box, similar to what we saw for replacements. It's going to show us the customer account information that we've selected. And one thing to point out here is that if you do change your mind and you realize maybe you selected the wrong customer account, you have the ability to change it here. So you can click on this hyperlink, and that's going to take you back to the previous page with the available account numbers, and then you can actually go back and either select a new customer account or continue with the existing one. So we only have one here to use, so we'll just continue with our current one. So you're going to be asked to provide a reason for a request here, and there are three options. There's expansion of mission, replacing agency-owned vehicle, and replacing commercial lease. So you can pick the appropriate one here. And then there's going to be a checkbox asking you to certify that the vehicle you're requesting will be for a long-term need, and it's not something that could be met with using GSA's short-term rental program. So we'll go ahead and click that off. And for garage address, just like for replacements, not everything is mandatory to be filled out here. So we do have mandatory fields of country, state, and postal code. So we'll go ahead and fill those in here. And then we're also going to be asked if this vehicle will be used for towing. So we'll go ahead, select yes, and put our weight in here. And then here we'll be asked to provide a SIN that we would like to order. So just like on the replacements, you have either the type ahead option, or you can click on one of the vehicle tiles below and select the SIN that way. So we'll go ahead and type our SIN in here. And then we can scroll down and click next. And you'll see here at the top of the second request details page, will be shown the customer account information at the top. And we're also going to see the information that we put in on the previous page. So it's going to show us the selected SIN, the garage address, and the towing weight. And we also have the ability to access the activity tracker, where we can see any comments if we posted them at this point. So we can actually go ahead here and post a comment. And another thing to point out here is that if your agency does have an agency document that has been uploaded into the system, that's going to be available here. So in our case, there's not an agency document that's available, but if there is, you can click on this button here, and that will download your agency's guidance document. And just like for the replacements, the next section is going to show us the GSA minimums from the federal standards, and it's also going to show us the options which are also coming through from the federal vehicle standards. So, once again, just a reminder that the options shown here are everything that was, designated as potentially available through the federal vehicle standards, but there might be variations based on what the suppliers have actually bid on and what's available on the contract. So, it's a bit more of a wish list, and there might be some slight variations on what's actually available. So we're going to go ahead and pick a few options here. And just like on the replacements, you can also enter in a comment for your option. And then once we're done selecting our options, we're going to go ahead and click next. So this will take us now to the third page of the request details page, and it's going to show us all of the information we saw earlier and everything that we've selected so far. So we can see here now, we're also able to see our options as well as the comments for that option. And just like for the replacements, the last section is going to be the supplementary information section. So this is where we can enter our make and model justification. And we'll also be able to upload a make and model justification document here, or we can also upload other, types of documents if needed. So also if there are any technical specs that you'd like to upload or any internal agency documents that the reviewers might need, you can also upload those as well. So you can see here that once we do upload the document, we have the ability to download it below here. And we also have the special instructions section available to us once again. So this is where we can put in a color that we would like, or maybe a specific delivery location that we prefer. So we'll enter a color request here. And one thing to point out also about the special instructions section is that it's one of the fields that's available in the report that you can download through the system. So it's definitely something that's going to be visible for other internal reviewers as well as any GSA reviewers. So it's a useful section to utilize here. And just like for the replacements, the last part is going to be this checkbox here acknowledging the ESA section 141 requirement. So we'll go ahead and click on that. And then we have now the option to submit a request up for approval to the next level. So we'll go ahead and do that. And we'll get a success banner at the top here showing us our additional request ID number, and now showing that it's going to be at the next level. So as you can see here, the request now has gone up to the next level, which in our case is the agency reviewer. And like Chris mentioned, the additionals are slightly different from replacement requests because they don't always originate from the local user. So for additionals can actually be initiated by either the local, the bureau, or the agency user. So that's a slight difference there. So now as a agency reviewer, we'll be able to go in and look at this request. So the first details page will look very similar to what we saw on the last page when we're creating this request. So we'll see the information tied to that customer account at the top. And then we're also going to see the information that we'll put in, so we can see the SIN, the garage address, the towing weight, the reason for the request here. We can see the options that we've selected, and we can also see anything that was entered in the supplementary information section. And we'll also be able to download any documents that were attached to this request. And we can also see the special instructions here as well. So just like on the replacement side, the agency reviewer has basically two options they can select here. They can either return the request back to the submitter if there's anything that needs to be changed. So if they were to click on that, they would also be prompted with the mandatory section here where they would have to provide a reason for a request. And then that would also generate an email notification to the request submitter. And then for the purposes of the demo, we'll actually go ahead and submit this request up to the next level. So we're going to go ahead and click Submit for approval. And now we'll see the success banner at the top showing us that it has successfully gone through. So if we scroll down, you'll see here now that the status is showing pending GSA approval. So this status is, essentially telling you that now the request is going to be reviewed by the GSA business management team, for funding availability. So our business management team is going to look at all of the requests that have come in and, do their evaluation for funding. And then based on that, they're going to either approve or not approve a request. And then if a request does get approved, it's then going to go to the FSR, and then it'll be an approved at FSR status once that happens. And the FSR from there is going to work on either creating a requisition to order a new vehicle, or they also have an option to fill an additional request with an inventory vehicle. So if there are any, idle vehicles that might meet your agency's needs, there's option to do that as well. So this covers the additionals part of the demo. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Chris and Amber.
All right, thank you, Simeon. Let me get presentation back up here. Oops. Okay, should be up there to see again.
Thanks, Chris. To close out the presentation today, we're just going to share some helpful tips and resources. So for helpful tips, we recommend that you familiarize yourself with the GSAfleet.gov vehicle request and approval functionality, and you're able to do that by attending the session today. We recommend that you work closely with your FSR on your mission and requirements. We saw a few questions come in about vehicles that didn't make it on the eligible vehicle list. So if you have any concerns with that, we recommend that you reach out to your FSR to further discuss. You should review agency guidance that's provided by your headquarters, the AFV product guide, and the rate bulletin. Check gsafleet.gov on a daily basis for any required action. We encourage you to meet or beat, even better, all of the established deadlines that we shared. Review and approve vehicle selections as soon as they reach your level. Attach documents and add comments so that you're able to communicate between approval levels and FSRs. The next few slides cover some helpful resources. So we have some links here for you that you can keep handy to gsafleet.gov, to the GSA vehicle federal vehicle standards. And then there's a link here if you have not already signed up for the vehicle availability listing or VAL updates. We highly encourage you to do that, and you can do so through the link that's shared here. Continuing on to more helpful links, we've shared a link on how to find your FSR, the GSA Fleet Rate Bulletin, as well as the GSA Fleet Minimum Replacement Criteria. And then we actually, I think the next one we should have removed off the slide. I'm not sure if that page needs to be updated or not. On the another helpful feature is gsafleet.gov just browsing capability. So this is where you can go if you there's a need to view vehicle and option availability without actually creating a request. The best option is this is your best option for that. So it allows you to search by a particular SIN or vehicle type. And then you'll be able to look at minimum requirements, see what options are available, as well as see the available makes and models within that particular SIN. The gsafleet.gov resource tab is another really helpful place to go. Within this section, users can find step-by-step user guides, as well as some video tutorials on gsafleet.gov functionality. There's an overview of GSA Fleet, and you can also locate various training opportunities. And there's a glove box that has some helpful information that drivers might need when operating a leased vehicle. The next slide highlights some upcoming desktop workshop sessions. We highly encourage you to take at least one of the FY26 vehicle offering sessions. We'll cover a little bit of the material that we covered at the start, where we touch on some of your key dates and things to keep in mind with the acquisition cycle. But the bulk of this session will be covering vehicles that are available to select in different vehicle categories for FY26. So highly encourage you to take at least attend one of those live sessions on, we have one this week on the 20th, and then we have a repeat the first week of December. So with that, that concludes the material that we have for you today. We appreciate you taking the time to attend the session, and we hope that you found it helpful. If you have questions, local customers, we encourage you to reach out to your assigned FSR. We also welcome questions at gsa.fleet.acquisition@gsa.gov. So with that, just thanks again for attending, and we'll see what questions continue to come in to the Q&A.
All right, there were some requests to see the schedule again, so I'm going to go back to that slide. Just put it up on the screen again. I can it's back in the beginning. Nobody. There we go. Here we go. So here is the schedule again for everybody to see. Please remember though that this schedule is to keep us on track and keep things moving. You can complete these different levels of review earlier, and we encourage you to do so. The sooner your vehicle selection gets through review and approval and onto your FSR to create the requisition, the sooner that requisition can get to the supplier, the sooner the supplier can produce that vehicle, and the sooner that vehicle can be delivered to you. Also seeing some more questions about the slides being available. The recording will be posted on gsa.gov on the training page. And if you would like a copy of the slides, we will distribute that as well. Devin, did you see any questions that were regularly occurring that you wanted to just highlight or touch on?
There were some things that I saw about telematics, and just so everyone's out there, the vehicles are going to come with telematics, either OEM or the Go9 device, unless you have a exemption. And if you have an exemption, they're not going to be put on there. In some cases, that actually may happen. So if we happen to find that, that'll be removed. There are some agencies out there that do want the Go9 device installed regardless if it has OEM telematics. And for our buddy AB, just get with one of us here. We'll get you in the right direction so that we can have those put on for your vehicles. And if there's any other agencies out there, we know USDA wants them on all of their vehicles regardless, and Marine Corps. So we'll take care of that. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thanks, Devin. Definitely helpful information there. I also want to reiterate, so we do appreciate all the Q&A that are coming in on this presentation and you all joining us. If you have questions after the presentation, your local fleet service representative at GSA can probably answer 99% of the questions. They are very knowledgeable with this whole process and everything to do with vehicles and GSA, whether it's an acquisition question, a leasing question, or how to use your fuel card or anything else that might be associated with your vehicle. Your local fleet service representative is an excellent source. And if they don't have the answer at the time, they have additional resources they can reach out to, and we will get you an answer, but they are the best local person for you to contact. Another common thing that we get an inquiry on the when reviewing your referred vehicles is when Simeon was showing the demo earlier and showing how to use the filters at the top. There is that search button at the bottom of the filters. Your vehicles will not display until you hit that search button. So we oftentimes see inquiries, people saying that they can't see their referred vehicles. They hit that search button and there they are. If you still don't see any vehicles, please contact your FSR and they can see what's going on. Maybe that you don't have any vehicles that are referred for this year, or maybe it's an issue with how your profile is set up and we can get that fixed and rectified. Looks like most of our Q&A has quieted down. Amber, did you have anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
Stacy, did you have any closing comments or anything you wanted to make?
I just wanted to thank everyone for attending and to our presentations for doing a great job. They always do. This team, man, this time of year, they're so busy, and we really appreciate them taking all the time to do all the training sessions that they do. It's definitely not it's not a quick thing to get it all done, get all the prep done and offer the sessions. And this is me a little bit vamping just to see if any other questions do come in, because it always happens the second I start to close out the session. We get more questions. And just kind of want to leave that opening. I know that there's a couple things in there, but I will send a copy of the Q&A transcript to the team so that way they can see if there was anything that was remaining. And whether it's for them or somebody else, it can be farmed out to follow up with folks with that. So I think with that, we are going to close out the session unless anyone wants to actually jump on these last couple of questions and give verbal responses.
Or I think her name was Kim, who asked about the vehicles from last year. Those are still being processed. Vehicles are still being built and delivered. So it's a timing thing. They'll get here. Joycelyn, your vehicles are in gsafleet.gov and they are under offerings, lease vehicles, request replacement vehicle. Put in your email, hit search, and everything that you have will come up there. And then Frederico, curious who or how is CDD and customer driven data entered when a vehicle is replaced? It seems to be generated automatically, often incorrect when selecting the vehicle. For fast report purposes, we make sense to correct the correct customer driven data is entered at the time the vehicle hits the FM's account and not need to be updated afterwards. Makes sense? Yes, it does. CDD, customer driven data. So it's something that the customer in some way, shape, or form put in there. Addresses, if it's police use vehicle or whatnot. So what I would recommend is get yourself in there or whoever, take a look and validate what's in there because some way, somehow it got entered incorrectly. Lori, the SIN 87s and maintenance utility vehicles will be loaded up later. They're just not out. We don't have the information on the contracts yet.
So I am going to use the last minute here real quick just to show a few tips that we talked about on how to see what vehicles are available. Should be showing gsafleet.gov now. Devin, can you confirm you see my gsafleet.gov site page?
Yes, it's there.
Okay, so we're going to go here to offerings, fleet offerings section. You will see the just browsing tab here. This just browsing tab, you can see all the vehicles that are available. You can click in and see different SINs. Say we go to the 9C real quick. We can see the makes and models, all the options, and this is in the just browsing. So you can see all the different vehicles there. If we go back to the fleet offerings, another good place to look at vehicles is the vehicle availability listing. This is all the open contracts and their closing dates, all the makes and models. You can see it in this listing format. Good thing to do is you can export this into a CSV file. When you export this into a CSV file, it's going to give you a nice little format there. You can see by lines, all the SINs, makes and models, and their contract open and close dates. So that's another helpful tool there. And again, just to reiterate, to see your lease vehicles, go to lease vehicles, see here, put in your customer POC email, click the search button here, and vehicles will populate down here. But that's all I got, and I think we're at time. Anybody else have any other comments or anything they want to address?
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.
All right, thank you.